I'm going to go through the developer update shown here. Basically, it details the entirety of the upcoming Midchapter. Which, for those who don't know, bunch of big things planned for that. I heard someone coming in. Yeah. So their biggest aim for this upcoming update is to change the meta. Which, gonna be honest, looking at the changes, they're doing an okay job at. Not amazing, but definitely okay. Some changes are very good, some changes are very bad. Some changes are completely meaningless. But yeah, why don't we get into this then? So first things first, blah 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 blah. The PTB is going to be next week, so that will be from Tuesday onwards for I think a week, and then once the PTB closes, it'll be 2 to 3 weeks beyond that the actual Midchapter comes out, alongside the new Rift most likely. So the first big change they're making is the progression system. That's going to be this Midchapter, thankfully, as opposed to the next chapter. So yeah, basically, this perfectly sums up how I feel about the game. Like, collecting perks, it's a big task, and anytime a new chapter gets released, that's another 6 perks, 3 to each side minimum. There's some cases where it's even 9. The last particular chapter was 7 because they added Shattered Hope as well. So this absolutely is becoming a problem. So with that in mind, they're making changes to how the perks are gained. Currently, you have to get levels 30, 35, and 40 on the character first that the perks come from, and then you have to level up the characters that you want to get the perks on. So it's all well and good leveling up the person who the perks come from to 30, 35, 40. You then have to go and level up your character that you want the perks on a further minimum of, will that be, further minimum of 9 times, I would say. Generous, it would be 6, actually, I think. Or thereabouts. I could be completely doing the maths wrong for that, but I think it's about 6. Which is still a lot of blood points at level 50. That's 300,000. Which, in a normal setting, would take you around probably 6 to 7 games per. Like, if you're playing Killer specifically, and probably more as Survivor, you're probably talking about 10 games. So it's not an easy task, and especially if you have multiple characters to keep up with, and it's even more highlighted on the Killer side, because it's especially noticeable due to like each killer obviously having their own powers. You can't exactly go about it saying, oh yeah, we'll just do this, and automatically everything's just fine and dandy. Hang on a second. OBS is being dumb. For some reason my camera's not perfectly in the corner and I hate it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so as I was saying there, it's just getting to the point where it's a bit ridiculous trying to keep up with the blood point grind. Because currently, let me just quickly have a peek. This is particularly on the Killer side. Survivor, it's not as problematic. Oh. Come on, camera. Play nice. It's still clipping a little bit. Stop it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so currently, let's see. How many killers do we have? We have 28. So you're looking at 28 times 300,000. Minimum. A lot of blood points. And that's if you're wanting to get all the perks on every killer. Not to mention that it's already taken like 10 million on the newest killer itself. If you want all perks on them as well. Like, 28 times 300,000, what does that work out at? That's 56, 70, 84? Is that? Yeah, so 8.4 million. That would be. And that's just to get the teachables of the newest killer onto the rest of the killers. That's not even considering the plus 10 million minimum to get all of the other perks on the new killer. That's 18.4 million minimum, just straight up per chapter. And that only gets bigger. So, with that in mind, they're completely scrapping that system. You can see here, their numbers, they claim it to be 4.1 hours every day between chapter releases to get all the perks on the new killer. And including every character, that is. So 4.1 hours a day. Not everyone's going to have that sort of time. Basically, never. Even a streamer would probably struggle to keep up with that. But now they're reducing it to 1 hour a day with this new system. So keep this part in mind, because that's going to be worth noting later. Cutting it by roughly 75%. So they're removing teachables altogether. Damn it, why does my camera clip? I hate this. Hang on a second. Camera is being dumb and clipping outside slightly. Filters. Crop. Let's do that. Hopefully that'll resolve that. Okay. Back to what I was saying. Yeah, so teachables are gone. However, they're now going to be known as shareable perks, and they're directly tied to prestige. So anytime you prestige a character, their 3 teachable perks, or now shareable perks, I should say, will appear on every other character at tier 1. Same applies at tier 2. Same applies at tier 3. So prestige 1, 2, and 3, you will get that rarity of the perk. The 3 shareable perks. And that's across both roles, which is going to be huge. Now, beyond that, the shrine, this is worth noting as well, the shrine will stack effectively as a prestige. Now, it won't obviously visually show as a prestige. You still have to go up the ranks yourself, and it doesn't bring any other rewards forward. But basically, the shrine will give you the first tier, or rather the first available tier of the perk that's there. So for example, in the shrine right now, let me just see, if I'm not mistaken, Hex Retribution's on the shrine. Yep. So if I were to go ahead and purchase Hex Retribution, I would get Hex Retribution to tier 1 on every killer. Say I had Pyramid Head to Prestige 2. I would automatically be getting Forced Penance, Trail of Torment, and Deathbound all at tier 2. Now at the minute, Deathbound is on the Shrine, so if I did theoretically have Pyramid Head Prestige 2, I would be able to purchase Deathbound on its own to Prestige 3. Excuse me for a moment. Okay, sorry about that. I've just been informed that I'm no longer required for the first half of the taxi duty at least. So there'll be no break at about 7:30, quarter to 8, somewhere around that. And I'm yet to find out about later on, so I'll just have to let you know as that happens. What was I in the middle of saying then? Yeah, so Deathbound, because I already have it to tier 2 on all killers, if I were to purchase from the Shrine, that would automatically make all of the Deathbounds tier 3. While both Forced Penance and Trail of Torment remain at tier 2. Until either I get them from the Shrine, or I take to Prestige 3. And you can see there's their description of it there. So basically, you'll only ever need to unlock teachables once. Or sorry, you'll only need to unlock just perks in general once on any character. You'll not lose anything on Prestige anymore. Which is what they get into here next. So perks, items, add-ons, offerings, everything will remain. Perk slots are all there. And prestiging is now going to be mandatory to be able to progress the Blood Web. Prestige will now have a new limit of 100, which is quite a jump. So they don't really say much here other than 1 through 9. 10 through 100 they say nothing about. Don't know whether it's going to be shards, don't know whether it's going to be arc cells, don't know what they're going to do for the remaining 91 prestiges. But it would be pretty lame if it was nothing. So 4, 5, and 6 is going to be what the old 1, 2, 3's at currently. 4, 5, and 6 give you the torso, bottoms, and head for survivor, or weapon, bottom, and head for the killer. So beyond that, then 7, 8, and 9 give you a charm of the character in question's teachables instead, which I think is quite neat. Hopefully they do it as a bit of a callback to the teachables as well, and makes them like orange or something. Shrine of Secrets we've already covered. Transitioning to the new system. So basically, because there's a bunch of players who've spent God knows how many blood points on killers that are, or survivors that are stuck at level 50 on a particular prestige, be that 0, 1, 2, or 3, they're going to be transitioning over to the new system accordingly. So they'll try to place you where they think you should be within the system. Say, for example, like I've got a few characters at level 50, but all perks. That could translate over as like prestige 3 or 4, probably. It just depends how many blood points you've put onto the character in total. Likewise goes for those who are prestige 3, but the difference in a prestige 3 case is that you'll also receive a special prestige icon. That I'm not sure. It could be this people have been speculating, but I just genuinely think that this is to do with the fact that they're probably doing this like ash, bronze, silver, gold, iridescent thing again, as opposed to this one being out of place and that one being the actual like special thing. I don't think that's going to be the case. I just think that's like to match up with the grade system more than anything. So, with that in mind, again, um, they're going to show that off supposedly in a live stream. Don't know whether it's already happened. Possibly it could have happened on Thursday past there, but I wasn't really paying attention to their Twitch. So if they showed it, oops, didn't look at it. My bad. But other than that, there is supposedly going to be a live stream before Tuesday, if they haven't already done it. So next thing to note is matchmaking incentives. They did mention this previously that they're gonna add matchmaking incentives. They always want to try and make queue times pretty reasonable for both sides. Now, obviously, that's not going to be completely possible because, you know, asymmetrical game, you're always going to have an uneven number of killers versus survivors. And there's always a chance that queues can be heavily skewed to one side. More often than not, survivors. So with that in mind, they are going to add matchmaking incentives, ranging from plus 25% to plus 100% blood points, depending on demand. And it's basically a good double up for indicating which is the faster queue times as well. So if you see that there's blood points incentives on Survivor, play Survivor. The queues will be much faster. Now the thing is, usually it's pretty easy to tell. Like, let's be honest. I think it's more or less common knowledge at this point that the queues die at around 8 o'clock on the Survivor side, because there's just so many more of them at that stage. Whereas the killer queues die during the morning, because there's just not nearly as many survivors. So I think that's not going to really change much. It's just going to be that extra incentive as to, yeah, play this role. Now, again, I'll have a little bit more to say on that later, with some perk changes in mind, which, spoiler, you may already know what I'm referring to with this. I'll get back to that later, as I say. In terms of Survive with Friends, they do mention here somewhere. Yeah, so playing in a group can also net you a bonus, especially if the matchmaking rating is in demand. And then the other main thing they mention is that crossplay must be turned on to take advantage of this, because it's otherwise very easy to manipulate. Which is fine, because if you're willing to turn crossplay off in the first place, then you're just asking for slower queue times, if I'm being perfectly honest. Gameplay updates. This is the big one. So basically, the entire premise of this is that like, this is the entire basis of this. Some perks are popular because of strength, others are popular because they reduce the likelihood of unfun situations. And with that in mind, they're making some baseline changes across both sides. So, first things first, generator speeds. When you're looking at the killer side, it's very obvious that slowdown perks are the favourite perks. And they name a few here: Corrupt, Pop, Pain Res, Ruin. Which, yeah, completely agree. First three in particular. Ruin, surprisingly not as common as I expect anymore, but still a very strong perk. Gens power too quickly. Absolutely, they do. And just as a disclaimer, by the way, I am a survivor main, and while I do sometimes play killer, I'm usually more biased towards survivor when it comes to this sort of thing. But there are definitely some changes that need to be made on the killer side of things to definitely give them a better chance without having to use what survivors would usually deem unfun tactics, which we'll get into that in a bit. So basically, generators are now going to be 90 seconds back to their original timer from 80. Which, yeah, that's fine. 10 seconds a generator, that's 50 extra seconds theoretically. So that's a good change. I don't think it ever should have changed from 90 to 80 in the first place, but we're back to 90 again, which is good. I still fail to understand how it ever did change from 90 to 80. Kicking a generator will now instantly remove 2.5% of the maximum progress. Basically, they're giving every killer a baseline, like a miniature pop goes the weasel. Which, again, this is a good change, because it means that tapping the gen is a lot more risky, and is generally detrimental. So, it's still possible, because that 2.5% of a generator is only, if we're looking at the new number from 90 seconds, that'll work out at 2.25 if I'm not mistaken seconds, which 2.25 seconds isn't a lot of time, but it's still enough to make it to the point where if the killer was to kick the gen, survivor goes tap it, killer kicks the gen again, killer goes off, does something else, survivor comes back and taps it, does whatever else they need to do, killer comes back, sees the gen's being tapped again, kicks it again, there's 7.5% gone just in the time that they spent kicking the generators. Which, let's face it, what would that work out at? 6 point something, I think that is. Yeah, 6.75 seconds. That's a decent amount of time, all things considered, on the killer side. Happy stream anniversary. Hello, Dory. Thank you. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. We're just running through the developer update that they released during the week there, detailing all the changes and giving my thoughts and analysis on it. You're exhausted. Yeah, I feel exhaustion too. Trust me. But hope you're doing well, at least. So, I'm honestly glad this is a change they're adding. It may seem minor, but been out all day, been Armed Forces Day, Donner Seafront today. Oh, very nice. Hope that went well. So yeah, some other changes then with regards to the killer side. So basically, they've also noticed that Maddie got a hold of real musket. Oh, that's pretty nice. Yeah, cool. So what they're saying is the average kill rate is a little bit lower than they would like at the minute, which I can see that. Like, in any games that I'm properly trying, like, I will admit that, like, I'm probably a little bit higher MMR than I should be on killer, due to either, like, previous circumstances regarding, like, random disconnects and just getting easy 4Ks for whatever reason. Gonna leave a lurk for you, buddy. No worries, Dory. Thanks for hopping in. Thanks for the lurk. And I shall catch you some point soon, hopefully. So yeah, I can I can sort of relate to this. The kill rates being slightly lower than average. There's the thing with kills is that it's very rare that I actually get 2 kills exactly. But it's a lot more frequent that I would get 1 kill than it is 3 or 4. And while it's not that often I get 0, it does happen. I honestly think the average does lie somewhere around 1.5 for me, probably a little bit higher, 1.6. So I can sort of agree with this. Um, so with that in mind, they're reducing the time it takes to break walls, pallets, and generators all flat by 10%. Which, if you aren't already aware, this is the second time they've done something like this. Um, Kicking pallets and walls used to take a lot longer than 2.6 seconds, and that's being reduced to 2.34. Likewise for generators, I think it was originally 3 seconds or something like that. 2.5. It was definitely a lot more than 1.8, I can assure you that. But yeah, that fraction of a second can be the difference. One thing I only actually just noticed today was this. They're implementing a base kit save the best for last at 2 tokens. So they're automatically giving you an extra 0.3 seconds. Sorry, they're giving the survivor 0.3 seconds less to get away before the killer starts moving at their base speed again. Not to mention that the survivors themselves are also receiving a speed boost nerf, lasting 0.2 seconds less than usual. Again, most of these completely fine. I have no major quarrels with any of that. Bloodlust. It's gonna increase in power quicker than before. So they're reducing it by 5 seconds at tier 2 and 10 seconds at tier 3. I honestly don't think it's going to be that big of a change. If you're having to chase someone for this long without getting a single hit, I think that's kind of a player issue. Like, no offense. I think it starts to become a player issue if chases are having to go on that long. Or you're just being too stubborn at a pallet, for example. Like, if you genuinely think that you're eventually going to bloodlust this person, like, sure, but would it have been more worthwhile to accept the bloodlust loss, break the pallet, and then resume chase? Because that's not even considering down the line that you breaking that pallet may actually cause some other chase to last less time. So this shouldn't be too significant for most people. It's only really significant for either stubborn killers, like regardless of who they're playing, or killers that don't have any means of like anti-loop or just a power in general. So Pig and Myers, really. Tier 1 of Bloodlust doesn't change, that's perfectly fine. I think Tier 1 Bloodlust of 15 seconds is reasonable. But now we get into the survivor side of things. Basically, the main problems for survivors are those 2 big pillars: camping and tunneling. Now, when I first read through this, I thought these changes were good. But there is one thing I fail to consider. They say that they want to address unfun situations, namely being camped or tunneled out of the game. Which, yeah, I'm for that. I'm pretty sure most people would be for that. But then I got bored one particular evening and I watched Otstarva's analysis on this particular section. And he brought up a very good point. There is no change here that helps prevent camping to any degree. Not even one. So, let's go through them. So, survivors will automatically receive bar time light after being unhooked. So 5 seconds of endurance, and on top of that, they also gain 7% of haste for the same duration. Both are cancelled after a conspicuous action, which is basically what decisive like cancel conditions are. Plus opening this, which should have been there to begin with, to be honest, but I'm surprised it wasn't. So yeah, 5 seconds is decent to be able to like avoid tunneling specifically. But what happens when you can't get off the hook to begin with? Have a think about that. What if you're facing a killer that has the ability to one hit down? Baba's Basement, Hillbilly, Iridescent Head Huntress, Iridescent Coin Deathslinger. The list could go on for quite some time. However, excuse me, what do you do in the event that there is literally no counterplay to hook trades? Like, it just isn't. They don't address camping at all here. It is exclusively the tunneling part. Like, you're still gonna die if you're against a Baba. You cannot play against that to any degree. So, moving on from that, then. Basically, these graphs are just showing popularity of perks. Nothing too significant. Don't mind this here line, it's just the perks are locked. Excuse me. Don't know why it's not on the survivor side, but it is what it is. So, here starts the list of the 39 perks in their entirety. Not just the top 10 like I thought it was going to be. The entire list is here. And we're going to go through them all. So, barbecue. Barbecue, in short, is losing its blood points. Which, they make a good point. They reduce the grind by 75%. This should no longer be an issue. So the aura reading is still going to be retained. 4 seconds of aura reading for survivors that are 40 meters or further away. And this change will actually still... This perk will actually be very good in combination with Lethal Pursuer now, by the way. Because Careless Survivors... Actually, I'll get into that when Lethal Pursuer comes up. It's worth mentioning. Barbecue will still be good on fast killers. Killers that are mobile, killers that can just get across the map within like 10 seconds. Killers that are slow, however, will not benefit from this perk anymore. At all. Ruin. Basically, they're halving the regression speed. Fine. Call of Brine does the same job anyway. But you have to kick the gen. Plus, there's other perks now that'll be doing better jobs than Ruin. Not to mention, once the first survivor is dead, Ruin is gone, regardless of whether the totem's cleansed or not. Which makes me think that this should not be a hex perk anymore. That's the one change I would make to Ruin now. It shouldn't be a hex perk. Since there's now 2 deactivation conditions, I don't think that should be the case. I think they should just remove the possibility of cleansing it. Pop. Pop is now going to do 20% of the current progress as opposed to total. Honestly, they probably could have kept it at 25, but they've nerfed it to 20, so be it. Whatever. That's fine. Corrupt Intervention. This perk has been kind of done dirty. Hi Rats, welcome in. Have a wonderful 4-year anniversary stream. Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to join in later, by the way. I will be hopefully doing Swifts at some point, and depending on if Aaron's streaming, I guess, probably go on his stream as well, I guess. Just walking through my thoughts on the changes for the what do you call it? The Midchapter. Just sort of come in at a bit of a weird time. We're like not too far into the perks stuff at the minute. So yeah, Corrupt is now going to be deactivated once someone goes into the dying state. So it's getting a pretty big nerf. Because either you're going to get good early pressure from it. You're going to get that down. But if you don't get that hook, be it due to pallet save, flashlight save, whatever, if you for some reason do not get that hook, Corrupt is gone. You don't have that fallback anymore. So I think that's maybe a little bit over the top for Corrupt, but I think honestly you could probably... could you though? I was thinking maybe up it to 150 seconds for Corrupt 3. Just to compensate. Actually, no. No. Instead, what I would do is, instead of once a survivor enters the dying state, why not change it to once a survivor's hooked? Because, as I say, if you do not get that hook, that's that perk gone for good. Which I don't necessarily agree with. And anything could go wrong. You may just not get the hook. There could be a flashlight save, there could be a pallet save, there could be a head-on save. Like, there's definitely things that can go wrong that could warrant Corrupt staying up. So I think this perk's been done a little dirty. Tinker. This is the exact change that I predicted would happen. It only activates once in the generator. That's fine. Noad. Belsh. That's not a name I expected to see. Happy anniversary. How have you been? Thank you very much. I am doing okay. Could be better, could be worse. It's probably one way to put it. Just going through the Midchapter details that they released during the week there. Hope you've been doing well too. It's been quite a while since I've last spoke to you. Noah. Same here, to be honest. Fair enough. So Noad, its strengths are not changed, but instead survivors can now see the aura of the Hex Totem once it's active. So 4 meters initially, increasing to 24 meters over 30 seconds. Being a bit rough. Sorry to hear that. Hopefully everything will be fine though. I'm sure we can get back to playing again at some stage. But I'm glad you're doing okay, at least, for the time being. But yeah, so Noah's still going to be viable. It's not getting a direct nerf, it's just getting a... I personally think this is a quality of life thing. Because I think this should have been the case the entire time. Not necessarily this big a radius, but it definitely should have revealed itself during endgame. My least favorite killer perk, Cringe Raz. Yeah, they went a little bit too far with this perk. I still think they really should have kept the screen. But, no, they got rid of that and the noise notification. So, no more free information. Still sucks with the surveillance at least. So, that's good. Now we're on to the other side, the more controversial side. E. The infamous E is being nerfed. This paragraph says enough. 2 main ways to use Dead Hard: to dodge a hit and for distance. Yes, Ross. E. Indeed. The infamous E is getting nerfed. Dead Harding for distance is probably one of the most frustrating things in this game. Because the perk's intention is to dodge a hit. Now, while dodging for distance does eventually lead you delaying a hit, you're not specifically dodging it. So with that in mind, the change they made is it's going to provide endurance for 1 second. Now, again, this is a good change for most killers, not all though. Any killer that relies on basically using their power to get it down, where the survivor's already in the injured state, is gonna be pretty hard done by this. Depending on when the Deathslinger releases gun to go for the swing, depending on when Trickster releases the last knives, Huntress releases her hatchet. There's a few things there that this is actually a buff against specific killers. Because it's going to be pretty easy to react to, the killer's going to swing. Whereas if it's a killer that either mouse ones, or better yet, they can insta-down you from healthy, this perk is going to be pretty awful. It's very rare this perk's going to be particularly helpful in my opinion. I still think it'll be a mid-tier perk with these changes. And it's obviously still an exhaustion perk, by the way. It's not as if they're removing that. It's still exhaustion. But, yeah. This I am very happy with. Dead Hard's the bane of any killer's existence. I honestly don't know how to feel about the changes. See, there's some that I feel good about, there's some that I don't feel so good about. Um, that's what I'm currently going through. Uh, Most of the changes up until now, I've been more or less fine with. I think the only perk that I feel has been hard done by so far, like out of the ones that I've looked at, so as far down as Dead Hard, is Corrupt Intervention. That's the only one that I'm actually a little bit annoyed about so far. Anything above that, I'm perfectly fine with, minus the fact that there's nothing done about camping. The bar time base kit thing, I personally don't mind it too much. I was very against the idea to begin with, but the fact that it's only for 5 seconds as opposed to 10, like 5 seconds is definitely avoidable in most scenarios, especially with Dead Hard being nerfed. So if you go Survivor close to the gate, you've screwed yourself. Yeah, like, but then again, you can argue, then why didn't you place it on a further hook? Provided you had one, of course, but in most cases you will. Like, haste boost, sure. Like, I can see it being a slight problem, but 7%, like, what would that work out to be? You're talking, what? 0.28 meters per second faster? Like, that's not a huge amount. That's very avoidable for most killers. Now, Nurse and any of the 110s could have a problem. I will say that. But in most cases of the 115s, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Because Survivor run speeds will be 4.28. Unless the haste status stacks with Hope, you should still be able to catch them by the time that them 5 seconds have run out. I just don't know how it stacks with Hope specifically, which is one thing I'm a little bit concerned about. So, yeah. Like, going back to the perks then. DS, like you were saying, decisive is no longer active during endgame, which perfectly fine. If you've saved the perk to that far in the game, one, good job. You've done well to get to that point. But secondly, you shouldn't be guaranteed a free escape at that stage. Especially when other survivors were running Bar Time, Dead Hard, also decisive. Like, those 3 perks alone are game breaking in a combo. So again, glad about this part. Stun being reduced from 5 to 3. I don't know how to feel about this part. I was a bit iffy about this. I feel like 3 seconds may be too little time in some killers' cases. Anyone that can't move fast. Yeah, Nurse gets a free down regardless. Yeah, exactly. Any killer that moves fast, 3 seconds is absolutely nothing to them. So, is that a good thing? Not really, unless you've got backup. The only way you're going to make full use of decisive now is if someone's there to take a protection hit. And even then, it may mean nothing because it's a teleporting killer. Or a trap-based killer. Like, it just may not even matter. Honestly, like, maybe increase it to 4. Make it middle ground. I just think 3 is going to be too little. But in saying that, 3 is good for any killers without the ability to anti-loop or have any sort of range, if you know what I mean. It's definitely healthy for them for it to be 3 seconds. But anyone with speed is... No. That's not okay. They probably will put it back to 5, and I honestly hope they don't, because 5 is a bit excessive in some cases. So I do hope they go for the middle ground of 4, but I don't know that they will. Bar time. Bar time's getting the light version out of the base kit. So with there being 5 seconds of that, they've nerfed bar time to be 10 seconds, but it stacks on top of the other bar time. This isn't a nerf. This is a buff. And you're wrong to say otherwise. Bar time's getting 5 seconds base kit standard. And if you run bar time, that's a further up to 10 seconds. That brings bar time up to 15 seconds total, which is 15 seconds endurance and 15 seconds 7% haste. This is still like a top 5 perk. And this is the one perk that I'm severely unimpressed about. I thought that if they were going to add bar time to base kit, they would have at least reworked how bar time works. But no, they've literally made it more powerful. God, I thought I deactivated that. What do you mean, stupid bot? Yeah, screw it. I'll just leave it there. I could swear I deactivated the timers last time I streamed. Unless I just didn't hit save or something daft. Yeah, so effects will be cancelled on conspicuous actions. If the survivor has time to do a conspicuous action, they didn't need it. Which is fine. But it's still a massive problem that they're now giving 15 seconds of endurance and haste. Severely unimpressed by that one. This one definitely needs another nerf. I was hoping for a rework, but if they're keeping this effect the same, it needs nerfed. It just can't be kept like this. It just can't. Iron Will, a perk I'm a little bit sad to see go, but it's now getting nerfed by 25% flat across all 3 tiers. I like the old bar time. Yeah, the one where the bar would just always decrease. It was like 40 seconds after you got hit. Or something like that. Even when it was reduced to 25, like that was still fine. 25 seconds is a lot of time. All I will say though is that I do think there should still be some way to get out of the bar time state. Or well, it would be deep wounds, I guess, but I don't know. My biggest thing about it is that I feel like in the case of bar time specifically, Self-mending should not be an option. That, or the timer does not freeze while you're running. One of the two. Probably the latter, actually. Oof, got an ad. Feels bad. But yeah, so if I had to pick one of the two, I would probably prefer to say that I would probably prefer to see bar time change back to that one where running no longer stopped the man timer. I think that's actually probably the best change you can make. I would even take increasing the effect of how bar time is right now from 10 seconds, increase that to either 15 or 25, I would say. But, actually, no, keep that effect the same, rather. But then, once you take the hit in the endurance state, instead of inflicting deep wounds, at least in its current state, inflict a deep wound that always goes down unless you're mending. Because I feel like um having bar time stay in a state where you go into deep wounds and you can run the killer for like another minute and a half minimum if you play the pallets right. I feel like that's honestly a terrible way to go about it. Um, the way they have, because it's just not punishing enough to be in the deep wounds state. So on to the next one then, Iron Will. I look at Iron Will, and as I say, it's getting this nerf, 25% all tiers, and no longer active while exhausted. Both of those suck, but ultimately they're good changes. Excuse me. Iron Will, very popular perk, so it is. And that's because it just outright mutes your character. The only issue I have with this is that Strider is unaffected. We'll have to see how that plays out. So, next up, Self Care. This perk just got absolutely nuked for some reason. They are making it take 35% of the normal healing speed. That is slow. And if I'm not mistaken, you're probably looking at, let's see, 35%, that's 7/20. Normal healing speed is what? 16 seconds? So that would be 320. Divide that by 7. Roughly about 45, 46 seconds, or thereabouts, if I'm not mistaken. Like 45 seconds is a lot of time to throw. It's half a generator. Won't matter with better players, sure. And also Circle of Healing still exists. No, you will still have to set it up, obviously, but one Circle of Healing does a whole team versus Self-Care, which does one person. And is permanently active. And then they remove the item efficiency bonus as well. A little bit harsh, but fair enough, I guess. Spine Chill. This one's a big one for stealth killers. Spine Chill now only activates if the killer is line of sight, which is perfectly fine. Lingering effect for Spine Chill when the killer looks away, sure. Doesn't really do much. And removing the vault speed bonus. This is huge. That 6% for the vault speed bonus is surprisingly meaningful. But personally, I'm glad to see it go. It should be a resilience exclusive thing. So, that's the meta perks they've changed. Now let's go to the other side of things. The non-meta perks. So they've updated another 25 on this side. Starting with Overcharge. Overcharge is going to be brutal, to put it bluntly. So Overcharge will grow from 100% to 400% over 30 seconds. Meaning, after 30 seconds have passed of regression on a generator, that generator will be regressing at a charge per second. It'll be losing a second's worth of progress every second now. As opposed to a quarter of a second. Which is going to be massive. But Pair Overcharge with the new pop base kit thing is going to be quite significant to work around. Eruption. 10% penalty, 25 seconds incapacitated. When I first looked at this, I didn't think that was going to be too big of a change. Then I realised the incapacitated was a lot lower than 25 seconds in its current state. 25 seconds is a huge amount of time to lose. But it can still be countered in survivor rounds. This is just going to completely ruin solo players, more than likely, who aren't running empathy or anything of that likes. Knockout. In addition to the current effects, survivors crawl 50% slow. I'm pretty sure that's already in effect, is it not? Let me check. Knockout. Looking for K. See? Yeah, it literally already does that. And then reduces the recovery speed by a quarter. Don't know what that's about. New killer meta? Yeah. No, Overcharge will absolutely be new killer meta. It's going to be a strong perk. Colorophobia, they've actually added a unique thing to this, and I quite like it, but it's such a shame that it's on Colorophobia of all perks. So, including the healing speed reduction, Colorophobia now increases the speed of skill checks by half. Quite a big difference there. That 50%. If you get a 3 o'clock or a 4 o'clock skill check, you're gonna just not hit it. If you are prepared for Colorophobia. But the only benefit is that there's only really one or two killers this is going to be useful on. The biggest one being Doctor, of course. Sloppy Butcher and Colorophobia and Doctor will be absolutely horrifying to play against. Dark Devotion. Basic attack requirement has been removed, which I don't really think is the main issue, admittedly. Like, sure, getting rid of that is definitely a plus. But the thing is, a perk being tied to one particular player is a lot harder to work with than you would think. You basically have to be actively thinking about who you need to chase at all times. And even then, I honestly think they should have buffed the 30 seconds. I think it should have made it 45. Let me know what you guys think, but I honestly think Dark Devotion should have been increased to 45 seconds. Jolt. Jolt is going to be top 10 now, I would say. Generators regress when you down a survivor automatically by 8%. And now they're removing the cooldown on it. So, yeah, no reason to not run that perk. Especially on killers that don't have a like M2 based power. Lethal Pursuer, the perk that I was talking about earlier. That right there. Lethal Pursuer will now extend the duration of all aura reading by 2 seconds. Now, thinking about every possibility isn't possible at the minute. There's just that many. But even just think about barbecue. Those 2 extra seconds could be the difference in seeing someone exit from a locker. This perk is going to be used to catch people off guard something shocking. And I'm all for it. Because now I have to run the risk of potentially exiting too early of a locker. I'm actually very interested to go against this perk. When it does eventually come out. Gift of Pain, I'm not sure what the numbers are on it at the minute. Let me have a quick peek. Scourge Gift of Pain. Okay, so it's 9% at tier 3. And they're upping it to 16. Yeah, fair, I guess. Thanatophobia increased by 0.5% per survivor. Yeah, fine. This one is the one that I was looking forward to. But there are some caveats that I do need to know about the perk. Monster Shrine is one of the few perks in the game that has not been touched from launch. This perk has been the exact same since June 2016. There is some problems though. Does this perk take priority over Pain Resonance, Gift of Pain, and Floods of Rage? And if so, how many Scourge Hooks can there be in the world? Is it 4? Or is it 8? These details will basically decide whether this perk is going to be strong or not. If it's only the basement hooks, then this perk will probably be like lower mid. Because 20% is quite a speed increase. If I'm not mistaken, it takes 120 seconds for a survivor to die on the hook. That reduces that to 96. Obviously, depending if the killer's out of the 24-meter range, which they feasibly won't be. Basement hooks only. Yeah, well, that's not so bad, but it's just I don't know how it interacts with the other 3 Scourge Hook perks. That's the thing I'm more worried about. Because if Scourge Hooks generate in the overworld, the Scourge effect applies to all hooks. Not to mention, it specifically says Scourge Hooks will now grant this. Doesn't specifically mention that the basement hooks are the only Scourge Hooks that can be in the game. So I'm a little bit worried in that regard, because if Scourge Hooks can be across the map and in the basement at the same time, that's a lot of Pain Resonance and Floods of Rage and now Monstrous Shrine pressure. I mean Scourge Hooks because the perk was a basement perk. Excuse me a minute. Okay, sorry about that. Where were we? Yeah, I definitely need to know more information about this particular perk, because this is either going to be like lower mid or it's going to be like sort of bottom end of high tier, I would say, in combination with other scourges. So, moving on then. Survivor perks. Calm Spirit. This perk is still trash, to put it bluntly. Pretty sure it's only focusing on the basement. Yeah, it could well be, but like it is a little bit concerning that they don't really clarify that. I do really think that we need to know that to be giving a judgment on the perk. Calm Spirit, open chest, cleanser, blast totem silently, albeit at reduced speed. Little bit unnecessary, honestly. Definitely unnecessary for it to be this much. If it was slightly reduced, like 2015-10, sure. But why 30? This perk's already bad enough as it is. It doesn't need a nerf to compensate for getting something added to it. Hard disagree on this one. Saboteur now shows Scourge Hooks in yellow, which is fine, I guess. Helps you identify that there is a skirt hook. Makes sense. Botany knowledge. Increases healing speed by 50%. I don't quite understand why this was made a thing. Because now people can just use Circle of Healing and Botany Knowledge and heal at standard speed. Seems a bit over the top. I honestly don't think this perk needed changed. I honestly think it was good in its current state. Next up then, Off the Record. I don't think I've ever felt as uncertain about something as 80 seconds of endurance. Whoever at Behaviour thought 80 seconds of endurance was a good idea, they definitely need some questioning done. I can see that, obviously, that game progression action will cancel it prematurely. But I'm assuming that means conspicuous actions again. Which, if you get healed, then go out of your way to take a protection hit. You can still take another protection hit. Which seems a bit dumb. As long as it's within 80 seconds. Lucky Break. I'm fine with this one. It's now going to be rechargeable. 1 second for every second you heal another survivor. That's perfectly fine. So Pharmacy, I honestly think this perk got nerfed. I genuinely do. I honestly think this perk received a nerf, which is bizarre. So basically, Pharmacy is now only activated when you're injured. So if it's only activated when you're injured, that means if you find a chest early on, you cannot open it. Otherwise you won't get that green medkit. Yes, they have made it so that you can activate it multiple times in a trial. But do they seem to forget that there's 4 survivors and only 3 chests? Which, if you're not actively looking for them, you're not going to get them? I honestly think this is genuinely a downgrade to how Pharmacy used to be. I don't know about anyone else, but that I genuinely feel like this is a massive downgrade for the perk. And I feel that the perk is actually going to be worse than it was. Soul Survivor, meaningless change. I'm very disappointed in this change. So, behavior logic here. How do we make the current worst perk in the game a better perk? By giving it the effects of the former worst perk in the game. Like, where's the logic? You're just adding crap to crap. And it's just even more crap. Like, sure, this bit's nice, but how often do you see keys? like, keys just don't exist anymore, in effect. Not to mention that you need to get to that stage for it to even be activated. And don't even get me started on this part. This is completely meaningless. If you're the last person alive, doing a generator is not your priority. It's either find a hatch or find a door. There's no in between. It's just this part. That's it. Soul Survivor will be good for the endgame collapse. That's it. In a case of a 1v1. Still want to see the gen speed and kill your friends. Oh, I know. But it just baffles me that their logic was to add the effects of the former worst perk in the game to the current worst perk in the game. I just cannot fathom the logic. Cannot get my head around it. Such a bizarre strategy, but I think honestly the best thing about this will be the execute speed. That's it. I don't think it'll be the bottom perk on the list anymore, but it's still down there for sure. It's very much still down there. This will basically be the survivor's answer to Whispers, I think. What I'm really interested in seeing, though, Leader, Left Behind, or not Left Behind, Leader, Soul Survivor, and Wake Up. How does the... Or actually, no, Leader wouldn't matter because it wouldn't be active anyway. So even just Leader and... Or not Leader, Soul Survivor and Wake Up. Those two. 75% increased speed for the execute. That's what I'm interested in seeing. Moving on then, I still think this perk could do with some extra changes because it's still too weak. It really is. Distortion. Again, this one's rechargeable like Lucky Break. I think it's fine. Basically, stake out. But for aura reading prevention. Lightweight. I think this is... I still think this is a typo. And it's meant to be 345 as opposed to 543. I think. Still a pretty bad perk, though. To put it bluntly. Better, for sure, but still not good. Deja Vu. Reveal generators grant 5% repair speed bonus. I'm okay with that. I can only assume that's for the duration of the 60 seconds that the gens are revealed, so... No One Left Behind. Haste applied to any unhooked survivors. Not sure if this is permanent. Don't really say here. I'm assuming it wouldn't be. Because the survivors are already going to get that speed boost from the new base kit bar time. That's already a thing. So what does this do then? Does that stack on top? Is it permanent? It's not particularly helpful in explaining what happens there. Additionally, the perk activates when the gates are powered, which is good. makes the killer cry. Oh yeah, yeah, that's true, but not the point I'm trying to get. Dark Sense. Again, this is one that I think has actually been nerfed. So when a generator's powered, Dark Sense activates. The next time the killer comes within 24 meters of you, the aura is revealed for up to 10 seconds. Dark Sense then deactivates. I think this is a nerf. I don't know why. I don't understand why there has to be this 24 meters caveat. Like, this is the Survivor's Bitter Murmur. I guess Bitter Murmur does have a caveat, I suppose, thinking about it. It's 16 meters from the generator, isn't it? I guess I'm still not happy about the change for this perk. But thinking about it, like when comparing it to Bitter Murmur, I guess it makes sense. I'm still not a fan of the change, but it makes a little bit more sense than what I initially thought when I thought about it there. Tenacity. Reduces Grunt's pain by 75% in the dying state. Yeah. I think this is a fine change. I'm happy with that. Hope. Hope is now unlimited duration. Try pairing that with No One Left Behind. No. Still a nightmare for killers. What are we referring to? Tenacity? Or Dark Sense? Or which perk are we referring to here? Tenacity. Yeah, it can be annoying. And it's going to be even more annoying now. But that's the fun of it. Like, you're sacrificing a perk slot that you could be using for actual, like, effective actions to be able to get away from the killer while you're on the ground. And have that chance of being revived. Overzealous. This perk's being buffed 2% across all tiers, and the bonus is being doubled for Hex Totems, which I think is quite interesting. And then the last one of the list, We're Gonna Live Forever. Like Barbecue, loses the blood points, but unlike Barbecue, it gains a secondary effect. In effect, once you've done something that would have given you a token, so safe unhook, protection hit, flashlight or pallet save, things like that. The next time you heal a survivor from the dying state, they gain endurance, effectively giving them soul guard. And then once that's done, the secondary effect deactivates until you've done it again, I'm assuming. Good change. I think the perk's still gonna be like low tier, honestly. And now that the blood points are gone, people are probably gonna stop using it altogether. Like, let's be completely honest. People only used We're Gonna Live Forever for the blood points. Nobody really cared about the dying healing speed. But with that in mind, that is all of the changes. So overall, like, I'm largely happy. There's some that I'm still very questionable about. So let me just go through them again. So lightweight, it's still gonna, like, the thing is, lightweight's on such a fine line that it's either gonna be broken or terrible. Like, no matter what you do with its current effects. it's going to be one or the other. I still think even at 5 seconds, it's probably still going to be terrible. Soul Survivor, they really need to do more. Their current proposal for changes just isn't enough, in my opinion. Pharmacy got hardcore screwed. Don't know why. Off the record's going to be broken. Botany knowledge, this change feels a bit unnecessary. Calm spirit may as well not change. Saboteur. I think this should really bring the duration, like the Savo hook, down by half a second. Especially with the main combo of Savo Dead Hard being gutted now. I definitely think that it should be reduced to 2 seconds as opposed to 2.5. Monster Shrine could be overpowered depending on how it interacts with other Scourge hooks. We'll need to see how that goes though. Jolt is going to be very powerful. Lethal Pursuer is going to be fun to play against. Dark Devotion still needed a buff. Colorophobia. What can you do? It's a Terror Radius based perk. It's an awkward one to balance, really. So it's probably the best thing they could have done, but I do hope we see this applied to other perks. The skill check speed. Alternatively, we should also see it as a pass in Survivor add-ons, which I genuinely think they are due to do at some point. Survivor add-ons are extremely outdated. Like, they added one new add-on between launch and now. One. And that's the wedding ring for the key. Which is kind of baffling that they've done barely anything with the add-ons. I honestly think just they need to add some more add-ons for across the board on the Survivor side. Knockout, I'm not sure why they mentioned this 50% slower crawl speed, because it's already there. Though the recovery speed, sure, I guess. Not hugely significant, but Eruption could be polarizing. We'll have to see. Overcharge, definitely going to be very powerful. Spine Chill, definitely not going to be as run as often. Self-Care in the right hands is still going to be powerful, but it's going to be a lot less. It's going to mean less pressure on generators if people still run it. Iron Will, rest in peace. That 25%, while you still can stack with other perks to reduce the noise, no matter also reduce it by 25% itself. Or is it 50? Might be 50 actually. So stacking with no mither would still mute your character altogether. But Iron Will on its own no longer does that. Which is good, in my opinion. Extremely popular perk. Definitely need the nerf. Borrow Time, very upset about. It's... I swear to God, this camera is doing my head in. Just keeps turning, like, ever so slightly. Like, every so often. Decisive... We'll have to see. Not too happy with it, but... The one thing I will say I'm happy about it is that it's no longer active in endgame. That I'm fine with. Dead Hard, again, we'll have to see how it works on certain killers. Killers that like can hit from range, I think, are definitely going to suffer from this the most. Particularly Trickster, Huntress, Deathslinger, if they hit too early, of course. And basically any killer that lunges, there's a pretty good chance they're also going to feel the effects of that. And the thing is, Dead Hard's actually going to be a good mind game prevention part now, thinking about it. Say you're at a pallet and you're not sure which side the killer's going to come from. Dead Hard in that 1 second of uncertainty, and it could save you that extra health state. I think that's where we're at for it. So yeah. Corrupt Intervention I think is the hardest done by in the killer side. I don't think it should be dying state, it should be the first hook. Ruin. Sure. Like, I think it just should not be a hex perk with the second deactivation condition now. And then obviously barbecue. They haven't really done anything about camping. A little bit sad about that. Everything else I'm happy with.